Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight I want to welcome Brian Mcfaddden to the show. Brian's been a long-time listener, follower, and tonight he is going to make an appearance. Tonight we are going to look at Stone Temple Pilots and that whole era of grunge. We're going to primarily concentrate on the first two Stone Temple Pilots albums, but we get into all kinds of stuff on this show. So it's just a general discussion. I want to welcome Brian, and let's get this one started. Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and I want to welcome Brian Mcfaddden here to the show. Brian's been following my channel for quite a while. You've seen him making comments. He's been around, but he hasn't been on the show. But today, he is on the show. And tonight, we are going to talk Stone Temple Pilots. Now, I go back a long time. I remember when Stone Temple Pilots came on the scene. You know, it was that era, the grunge era. 91, you've got Pearl Jam, you've got Nirvana, you've got all these bands coming on the scene, killing hair metal, killing it dead in their tracks. Now, Stone Temple Pilots is one of those bands that kind of, they were like, the original name was Mighty Joe Young, and they formed in 1989. The first studio album, what was the first studio album? Came out what year? 94, or is that too late?
No.
Brian, help me. I'm having a brain crisis.
It was 1992. They got
92.
Signed.
Okay.
Right. And then they got signed with the Mighty Joe Young name that you said, but they had to change it because of licensing reasons. And they changed it with their manager, because it was ready to go. They already recorded everything. They were trying to put it out under this name, and they changed it right on the spot to Stone Temple Pilots.
I don't know. I think that's a better name.
Yeah,
of course, you know, they usually go by the acronym STP, but my thoughts, I don't know. You've heard this band back in the day. You know, you followed them.
Yep.
What were your
initial? I avoided
initial?
them like the plague. So
you avoided them like the plague. Well,
did.
they were often compared to Pearl Jam, kind of like Pearl Jam clone.
And they're from LA, so I looked at them as like a riding the coattails of the grunge sound, much like I found out later that Candlebox was actually from Seattle. I didn't know that. I thought that they were just a cash grab, one-hit wonder, especially with the first album. And then you keep hearing more and more from the same album. And it's like, well, they're really pumping it. But all these people like it. What am I missing? Because it wasn't clicking with me. So,
well, let me ask you this, Brian.
I avoided them right from the beginning. And I just got the record like recently. And then it's front-loaded and it's back-loaded on the first album. But the second side, I think, is stronger than the first side. But the first side's all the hits. I think it's a fabulous album. But having it out of sight, out of mind, or not even pursuing owning it or listening to it, it's aged well for me after 30 years.
Well, I don't think it sounds dated. You know, the
production on it, yeah.
It doesn't have that 80s production, which would bring it down.
It's almost like a Def Leppard AOR hysteria, like an AOR, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it's really produced good. And it's with that guy,
Brendan O'Brien.
And he did I think the first three. Then they took a break because they broke up and he was in rehab and all kinds of stuff. Remember he got caught doing cocaine and heroin with Courtney Love?
I don't remember, but I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I don't know. I must have overlooked it.
Almost broke up the band. In fact, Purple brought them back together.
Oh, you're talking about Scott Weiland.
Right, I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I thought Brendan O'Brien.
No.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he was doing that. I don't know. But no, Scott Weiland. Oh yeah, he was busy.
But yeah, O'Brien, man, he knocked these things out of the park. And I listened to him back to back, 3 albums back to back. So what was cool is at the end of each one, they usually end out with some kind of like a ballad or something a little bit mellow, so that you want to flip it over again and hear the heavy stuff all over again. And I noticed that with the first album, which makes it, I think, the replayability even more alluring because it's like, that first time was good. I'll play that again.
Well,
And then
I think. Well, go ahead.
Purple was the same. Purple was the same way for me. It ended strong because they're really finding like a hook. You know what I mean, with choruses and not even riffs, but like atmosphere and exploring the room. And then you get the end of that. It's like, oh, I could listen to the first side again on that. So you know what I mean, flipping flapjacks, and then doing 3. The third one I think is really good, and each one has let's say 11 to 13 songs.
Mm-hmm.
Each album has a strong 5 or at least 4 hits each batch. For the first 3 albums, never mind the ones that came after. So
Well, I know, like in Central Ohio, they play a lot off of these records.
yeah,
Like on FM rock radio. I mean, I'm not talking Sirius XM or satellite, but just FM radio. They play a lot off of these records.
right.
And
I'm not a fan of radio because I don't think real music is on the radio. It just kind of
well, it's not, but I'm just saying, after all these years,
gives you a glimpse of what you're missing, and it's like, I don't know.
they're still playing it though.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, longevity.
And then kind of how I got interested in this, because, well, let me ask you this, Brian. What were your thoughts on Pearl Jam back in the day? Like I said, they had a lot of comparisons to Pearl Jam, which if you listen to it, they really are quite different,
I've been chasing music forever. I've been listening to the punk and basically underground, I don't even know, like Dead Milkmen and PRI and stuff, but I caught Mother Love Bone 1985.
Okay.
It was a copy of Shine, right? And then I ended up getting transplanted from California. Actually, it wasn't Seattle, but it came from California, and I was playing that all the way up until Apple came out, and then I bought that on its release, and that's when Andrew Wood had already passed. But chasing that and Green River and Mudhoney, even the Pixies from Boston, they kind of caught me up with a lot of what's going on with the scene, with that underground flow. Even Jane's Addiction was in there, and they kind of had fans from each camp that would point you towards, oh, if you like that, you'll like this, you like this. But then they came out with the Purple album, Smother Love Bone, but it's like a greatest hits, but it's Shine.
I know what you're
Apple.
talking about. I know what,
but it's missing like one song from Apple on it. I think it's Captain Hightop. Anyway, so I thought it was like riding the coattails of that. I'd already found Soundgarden, which is still my favorite band next to Black Sabbath, and I really thought it was a cheap,
imitation of Mother Love Bone.
It's Stone Temple Pilots. Okay, you asked me about
No,
Pearl Jam.
no, yeah, like Pearl Jam, and you mentioned,
Right, and
Apple album and all that. I mean,
I remember when Pearl Jam released. It was at a radio station in Framingham, and I was helping to intern at, and I got to hear it the first time. Like there was a stack of CDs I had to go through, and you had to kind of pick and choose what was going to go into slots, and you had to burn them onto the CDs so you can have through the toaster and everything, so you can put your ads and all that stuff, sponsors in the spots. And I had it, and I was so tempted to take it home, and I didn't. But then it broke out on the MTV. I think it was Headbangers Ball. It premiered, and it made a dynasty all of itself. I love the first 3 albums on Pearl Jam, and I like again with Soundgarden, but I love Matt Cameron as a drummer. But I'm just not a Pearl Jam guy. I'm not a Pearl Jam fan. It's not something I sought out after, which I think is the most depressing album, which I'm not going to take anything away from it, but was Vitology. And I think that turned off a lot of fans, but it was depressing just to sit there and try and.
Well, that was like the last
front to back listen.
Vitology was the last one I think I even heard. I just kind of jumped off the bandwagon at that point.
Right.
I
I just
might have
gave
picked up a record that came out after that, but I can't remember.
I just gave No Code like another chance, and it's just I couldn't do it. I listened to the whole thing. I enjoyed it. I get for what it is. It's a solid album. It's front loaded, plus it's rear
Mhm.
loaded too, with some good ambience. But I don't care if I hear that again. But it's nothing to take away from them. Now I have Yield. I think is the next one because I've been choking down 4 albums right over
Mhm.
from the past 25 years, and now it's new again, right?
Mhm.
Um, but with the Stone Temple Pilots and Pearl Jam comparison, I really did think that there was just like it did with the '80s hair metal bands, which they were high on the tops. They were awesome. They were always on the radio. But
Mhm.
I was thinking it was going to saturate the market to the point where you're going to take my Soundgarden off my radio, and I didn't like that. I was against that. And you started finding other things like Melvins and other Seattle stuff. Never mind Queensryche and Heart, which I think we've all grown up on. But
Mhm.
to find like a whole new niche coming out of that niche and then being compared to it, I don't know if that's it, um,
Well, I don't think it's a fair comparison. I think they're obviously two different
it,
bands. I don't
it's a
see what the
compliment
compare.
because you're influenced by it. So it's almost like you're giving back to whatever this music scene community is, which is cool. I
Mhm.
think um, Blind Melon was a good example of that, trying to come in underneath with some of the I don't know the mellow acoustic stuff. That was kind of in the same vein, but
Mhm.
just a way better drummer, a whole different jazz.
Yeah, where were they? Were they out of Boston or something? Where were they from?
Blind Melon,
Yeah, I can't remember.
I I want to say they're from Seattle.
They
I
might
think
be
they are.
Seattle.
I've seen them in Boston. I went to TT the Bears in Boston, and I in a blizzard. It was a snowstorm, right? They telling everybody to stay home. You got the weather alerts coming across the TV. I went with my friend. We jumped in my Hyundai, front wheel drive, 5 speed. We were gone. Of course, coming home, it took us like 3.5 hours, which is normally like an hour.
Mhm.
So, but going there, it took us 2.5 hours. But we got there like 6 o'clock. They were playing at 8:30, whatever it was. They played with Flowerhead, and it was the only two bands. There was supposed to be
Well,
another band.
Flowerhead, I'm doing a Flowerhead interview next
Oh, I
week.
love them. Dude, this so underground and hard to find. Especially that first EP
Mhm.
is really good.
Oh,
I think Dig was supposed to play with them, and they couldn't make it because the snow. They were
do
in
you have
they
the
were in like New
EP?
Jersey or something.
Do you have the
Huh?
EP?
I
Do you
do.
have the EP on cassette?
I have it digitally downloaded.
Okay.
I did have the CD, right? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Right. They got the flower shirts and all that. I did
Yeah.
have that. No, I gave it to a friend of mine that was a musician that liked it more than me. So
Well, Flowerhead
Thought Chunky's another one.
or be on I'm doing recording it next week. It's
Oh,
everybody except the singer. So it's the whole band's coming on. And Scott Byron, who was their A&R rep at Zoo. So we got
right.
Scott back and oh, it's gonna be good.
Wow. 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 Have you heard of Bullet LaVolta? Because they
Yeah.
came out in '92 around this time.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a hit on 120 Minutes, and they had one on Headbangers Ball, which was called Swan Dive, which I think I've sent that to you before. But yeah,
Maybe.
it's grungy, you know what I mean? But it's
Mhm.
fast, so it's just like noise rock mixed with grunge. And then there was Fudge Tunnel, which a lot of people don't really talk about them much. They started
No.
a lot of things in like 1991.
But like,
I'm just saying grunge, just
right.
grunge.
Well, if you listen to STP and you look back, I mean, do you even really think these guys are really grunge, or are they just basically a
No,
rock and roll
no,
band to
I always
me?
looked at them as like a Guns N' Roses rock and
Yeah.
roll. But it just, I think every generation deserves its own music and their own influence. You don't want to grow up with, your dad's, bod rock or whatever, right? Classic
Hmm.
rock. You'll find that on your own. But this that was I really thought it was going to oversaturate the market from the
You
good
think they
bands that were
overplayed it too much in the 90s? Is that what you're
I
saying?
think so. Well, they were trying to push the Crow movie, and they had that. I don't know if it was Plush. I think that was on that, and
Yeah,
that
Plush is
you couldn't escape
93.
it for like 4 summers. The movie's already come and gone, and 4 summers later, you're still hearing it like every other song, every hour on the hour.
Mhm.
So
So I'm
there's
just
nothing
wondering.
wrong with it, but it's just why would you need to buy it? You can just put it on the radio, and you can't swing a dead cat without hitting it on any station. Within
Well, it's just funny
whatever
because I
zip
think
code or
now
area code.
no one really thinks about Stone Temple Pilots that much. I don't know if they're
No,
even thinking about Pearl Jam, really, but I think that Pearl
yeah,
Jam
Pearl
probably
Jam's
has
selling
much
out in
more of a,
stadiums.
they
Pearl
are.
Jam's, oh yeah, they're selling out huge. So you got to get on those tickets like within the first 3 minutes just to get, you know, $500 or $800 nosebleed seats. They sell out here at Fenway, and they sell out so quick. It's a 2 and 3 day event. It's almost like the Dead used to do when they played here in the early '90s. The Dead would sell out for a week, and they just keep, okay, we'll play again. You have to wait
So
for
do
the
you
off
think that,
season.
so I wonder, I don't know. Because if I look at okay, here we are comparing Stone Temple Pilots to Pearl Jam.
No,
If
I
I,
know.
if we
I'm trying to answer
compare
your
them,
question
no,
so we don't
no,
have to go back to Pearl Jam.
no, that's okay. It's all good. We're just
Yeah,
talking. But if you, let's say, because that was the big comparison back in the day, you know, that's what they always were compared to.
that's true.
If you look at Stone Temple Pilots, I think they had much more of a longer lasting, what do I want to say? I think they had many more hit singles, whether they were singles or not.
Oh yeah, they
They
did.
had more album tracks
Yep.
that were played on the radio than Pearl Jam ever did.
Right.
I'm not
Right.
sure because I only can name the only albums I can name is everything up to Vitology, and then
Right.
that's it. But Stone Temple Pilots, you know,
Yeah,
they
you actually know the title tracks, right? Yeah.
right.
I know what the albums are with Pearl Jam. I know what year that came out. The title track, no idea.
Mhm.
But yeah, Stone Temple Pilots, yeah, those things are like right in your face. And those things have always been played on jukeboxes throughout bars since, me growing up.
Yeah, but if you listen like Pearl Jam, the only thing they ever play, well, they might play Daughter off of Verses,
Right.
but
But
it's
yeah,
always Alive. It's always
yeah,
Jeremy.
yeah.
It's the first album. No one
Yeah.
plays anything beyond that. Now, Stone
I think
Temple
the
Pilots, they play
Vaseline.
a lot of tracks on the radio from these records,
Yeah.
I don't know.
The one
Uh,
song that always grabbed me was I think it's called Flutter Girl. Flutter Girl, I think.
it's
Do
uh
do 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 do
it's
do.
on number 4.
Okay, we didn't get that
You're
far.
talking about
Lone
Sour
Star
Girl.
on it. Yeah, Sour Girl. That's the one.
Great record.
Yep, yep.
I
That's
think
the
that
that's the one that grabbed me like towards the end before he went and did the Velvet Underground thing, which I know
mhm.
they
Oh,
did
Velvet
another album.
Revolver.
Yeah, am I right? Yeah, Velvet Revolver.
You said
But they
Velvet
did that.
Underground, but that's cool too. But Velvet Revolver, you're right.
Oh, I've been everybody. I keep seeing for people looking for records with the banana that you can
Yeah.
peel, and every time you see it, it's like pink because somebody already ripped it off. I
But
had
that
it on the mind.
record, that number 4 record, I like quite a bit. I think
Yeah,
Sour
it's good.
Girl, it's
I
a
think
good
they really
record.
grew into themselves too with their style and the way that they mix I guess the Beatles psychedelia mixed
More
with
on
the
this
blues,
record. Mhm.
and then they got these heavy like chunky riffs, which is great for about 4 measures, and they go entirely different um direction with some of the choruses.
Mhm.
So it's you got the heavy low, and then you got up the bright highs. They bring you up. It's almost like the roller coaster.
Yeah, I think it's good. I don't know. The only thing is, the only reason we're really talking about it's because I kind of got turned on to it. I kind of rediscovered them because I'm
Yeah,
like you back in the day. I was listening to and go, well, it's those
right.
singles are catchy, but
Yeah,
eh, you know,
right. if you have the radio on in the background, just working your job for 8 hours a day for years, you hear that song at least 20 times a day, and there's nothing wrong with it. Just, can I have a break? Can we change the
Right.
station? It's, Korn's another one that does that to me. Nirvana's another one that does that to me.
They play Nirvana a lot of, well, the only stuff they ever play is off and Nevermind.
Right. Well,
You never hear anything off the third record. You
yeah, they
never hear
did
anything off the first record.
Bleach. Yeah.
You never hear
Yeah.
anything off of Bleach.
Yeah. Recess is probably my favorite song by them. But I'm
But
not a Nirvana fan. I don't even have anything by them. I have nothing. So it's another one of those out of sight, out of mind. Do I really need to hear it again? Is it that important? Maybe in
right.
20 years I'll be like, maybe I want to hear some Nirvana. But I
But I just kind
guarantee
of
you,
think
probably won't.
after all these years and me
Green Day.
rediscovering Stone Temple Pilots and just giving it a shot, I'm just surprised that it holds up so well. In fact, I think it may
It
hold up
does.
well better now
But the
than it did
production's so
then.
good. Yeah, the
Because
production's
Brendan
just,
O'Brien
yeah,
is
I know. Right. I know.
great.
And Foo Fighters I'm not a fan of, which they're trying to get on that grunge cycle too, which I guess they deserve, but they don't sound grungy, sludgy, you know what I mean?
I think
Garage.
Brendan O'Brien produced everything. That Shangri-La, Dida, he produced that in
Yep.
2001.
Right. Right.
Well, thank you's then there's the Stone Temple Pilots, right? Well, who produced it? Oh, the Leo brothers produced that.
Oh, DeLeo, yeah, I remember them. And I think they were with Filter, right, at the time?
They
98.
could have, because did Stone
Yeah.
Temple Pilots ever
Yeah, because
break
all the
up?
industrial stuff and Nine Inch Nails and stuff. Yeah, I think so. I know Trent always produced his own stuff, but he always had help.
But they ended up producing their later stuff themselves. And, I don't know what Brendan O'Brien does anymore. I'm assuming he's still
He's
in
still
the
kicking
industry.
around. He hasn't gone anywhere.
But I like these records. I don't know. The album that I had on vinyl was Purple. Because believe it or not,
Yeah, that was a
it
big
did
one when it
come
came out.
out, pretty much. That was 94. And 91's when
Yeah,
they
it
quit
was.
pressing vinyl.
Yep,
Only
that's right.
not very many albums came out on vinyl anymore.
Yep, and it
I
was so
did have
popular.
that.
Trying to find the CD was hard. Everybody was buying the cassette, which I thought was okay. Here you go, $7.99 or $11.99, as opposed to, I don't know, 15 to 23.
Yeah.
Back in Strawberries days, coconuts, Tower Records.
But Purple had great big empty. Vaseline was on it. Interstate Love
Yeah,
Song.
I remember, and
Holy
that
God.
released like in a May, like right before the summer, and that's all you heard, man. You heard that like every 2 minutes.
It was
This car was
big.
driving by with it cranking. That car was driving by with it cranking.
But now I don't mind listening to those now because you don't really hear them that much.
That's
And then
right.
the
Yep.
third album, Tiny Music Songs from the Vatican Gift Shop, which is a stupid title. 96,
Yeah.
Big Bang Baby, Tripping on a
Yep. Big Bang
Hole in a
Baby. Yep.
Paper Heart.
Yep.
Oh my
That
God.
was good too. But
Lady Picture Shows Killer.
yeah, the
I mean,
drummer throughout. I like that they kept all the same original, members, because they gelled so well. But the drummer, man, he's in a world of his own, and he can hold his own as far as not sounding like anybody really.
mhm,
Because when it comes to drum beats and patterns, they're all done over and over and over and over. It's just syncopated,
right.
whatever the beat is. But yeah, he's got some good tribals. He's got some good downbeats.
I don't know.
He
I
doesn't
don't know
play
if
the.
anybody else is into Stone Temple Pilots, but I figure someone needs to talk about them.
That was a good comparison with the Pro Jam though, because I remember it, because people that were drawn into two different camps with that, and especially when Candlebox came moseying along, and then he had like the Stone Temple Pilot, Rage Against the Machine, uh, Candlebox, right, crew, and they Corn, and and then you had like the Pro Jam, and they went with the Soundgarden, and they did two different camps. I saw that. But the people that went with Soundgarden and stuff were like the Sabbath people, so they were getting into the stoner metal, like Down, which is
Hmm.
1995. They were probably already listening to like Danzig. Danzig was huge. with his solo albums. And
I think I've got the first Danzig.
Clutch was the other thing too that was leading these people away.
Clutch still gets a lot of
and all
traction.
the Nirvana camp, they went with the, they went with the other one.
I just remember that whole era where it just, I don't know if you had this experience, but I remember being at some club and they played Smells Like Teen Spirit. And it just so happened that I just remember from that moment on, everything had changed.
Right, and it did it overnight.
It did it overnight.
Yeah, Alice in Chains was actually one of the first ones to come along with Dirt, and then I think it was 2 or 3 weeks later there was Nirvana with Nevermind, and it just blew the whole market wide open, which was great because it let in a lot of, like the Pixies, for example. People who were exploring more punk orientated or alternative music, which I still think is superior to all the 80s stuff that they were playing. You had to watch that at midnight for 2 hours if you wanted to see it. But during the day, it was kind of cool. I like to have some stuff that I can, have my children around and my parents will be throwing up in a bucket.
So out of all that stuff, all out of that whole era, what do you think is the strongest material? I mean, obviously you mentioned that you're a big fan of Soundgarden.
Yeah, Mother Love Bone.
Mother Love Bone. What was the peak stuff from that era for you that still stands up?
Do you remember Hum?
Yeah, I've got the Hum CDs in here.
Yeah,
like they have like three, and they're like 3 or 4 albums.
Yep, that one was life changing. And then I remember Red Hot Chili Peppers came out with that One Hot Minute with
what's his name from
Dave Navarro.
Dave Navarro, yeah.
Yeah. So again, you're talking about separation of camps, and then
right.
It all depends on what you pursued. But I was getting into prog back then. I was trying to find the 70s stuff. I never listened to Rush until pandemic hit, and now I have like
really
a lot of records. Yeah, I avoided them like the plague. Just
why?
Like
because everybody liked him or what?
I thought he was flashy.
Overplayed.
Till I read a book, I thought he was something else, and he totally blew my expectations. And how humble and kind and empathetic, and deep and intelligent. He's the whole package for a drummer. Inspirational.
Oh, yeah. But Neil was it.
Yeah.
Well, it just goes to show you, you can go through life and like this Stone Temple Pilots, just to say, even though this is turned into much more of a general music discussion.
Well, sorry.
Well, that's fine. Hey, it's all about just discussions on this show.
Seems like everything influences everything else. And
everything influences.
You're talking about them. It reminds me that they keep dragging from all those same circles of bands that were making it big at the time. Like I said, coattail fashion. I thought that they were just latching onto a sound so they can go make money. And then they ended up becoming a much deeper band than that, as far as mathematical thinkability and just the way that they formulate their music. Wow. If you didn't ask me to come on here, I never would have gave it another listen. I would have bought the first album, been happy, and left it at that. But now I've pursued all the albums because of the first one, because you mentioned it.
Well, I just think that, I don't know. I think there's a lot more to him than people think. And I think a lot of that Scott Weiland thing of him being a big drug addict and all that, I think that overshadows.
Yeah.
He was such
but he was a
predominant
he
figure.
Kept getting arrested. He kept getting caught with stuff. He was going on, commercial planes, and he was getting caught like doing heroin in the bathrooms and cocaine, like left and right. It's just,
I don't know. I think as a vocalist, it's good. I think that they had good songwriting chops. You've got Brendan O'Brien production. Not every song on there is a hit single, but
no,
I think
but they
the
really
albums
didn't have much. They didn't have much filler. Like
no,
they had a thought out process with trying to connect one flow to another, and I don't think it was at all any kind of filler on any of those albums. Just some of the things with the interludes, and especially on Purple with the
Yeah,
all of a
yeah,
sudden
yeah.
the third one coming in with like the carnival music and stuff, and then you go into
Hmm.
the heavy riff, and then you go down, and then now you're in space rock land, and the
It's a
tribal
fun record.
drums. It took me down a different rabbit hole that I wasn't
Well,
expecting
if you
to.
never heard it, I remember because I
Right.
never really heard it, and I'm listening to it and go, "What the hell is happening?" They're
Yeah.
just having fun, and it's kind of creative,
Yeah.
They
But
weren't
that's
do
what made me
bands weren't doing a lot of that in the mid '90s. You
yeah, but
know.
that's what made me excited about it was because it wasn't what I was expecting when I was expecting something when I was listening to it because
Hmm.
I expected this, it's like a religious format, you know what I mean? And then
Hmm.
the third one just comes and just takes the rug out from underneath you.
Yeah,
And
just a
like I
fun
said, they have all
catalog.
that. Yeah, they had that orchestrated, like I said, with the psychedelic, atmospheric, uh, with the wind, and what was the other thing? Wait, with the solos with the feedback, as
Hmm.
opposed to doing all the noodly stuff. But he's good at doing that too.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're fun. I think they just need another fair shake. I think.
Well, they have the new singer, and they're still touring. They're still
Yeah,
around. They're doing all the old songs, so it's almost like Guns N' Roses milking, Appetite for Destruction all over again. But they have 5 solid albums they can keep going to, and they keep releasing new stuff so they can keep touring.
I mean, Guns N' Roses, don't they pretty much just hit the first record and that's it? I don't think they venture much on
Yeah, and then
beyond that, do they?
right. They got the November Rain, and then I think they do some stuff from the Spaghetti incident.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they do stuff from that with the punky, but there's always a cover in there somewhere.
But I don't know. I'm not a Guns N' Roses guy. I just never got it.
Right. And speaking of grunge, remember Kiss with Revenge, trying to keep relevant, and what
Yeah.
was that, 1996?
Yep.
Trying to go grungy heavy. So it's influenced everybody, even though it was a short stint of, I would say, popular 4 years, and then you got Metallica Black Album, which was competing with that. So you still had camps of
Right.
everybody
Don't
was
forget uh Skid Row.
Skid
That
Row,
third
right?
record's kind of grungy.
Oh yeah, slave to the grind, right? Yeah,
No, the
that
one after it.
that came
Um,
out of nowhere
no
and
crap.
just put people on the side of their heads. I remember that.
It
That
didn't get
is
I
that's
like that
still one of their
record
best
though.
albums. And the new one they just came out with last year was an end of year pick for me for Skid Row.
I never heard that one.
Oh, it's good. It's produced well and it's kind of heavy, chuggy. It's good.
What is that
It's
fourth
sludgy, but
record?
they got the new singer. He's got no hair, but that's all right.
Hey,
The best musicians have no hair.
Subhuman Race, that's the one.
Oh,
And that's the one that Eddie Trunk really likes. He loves that record.
yeah, Eddie Trunk. Yeah,
Mhm. I don't know. It's solid. It's a little bit different from the other stuff, but it's all right.
yeah, yeah, sure is.
You
Right.
know, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to change anyone's minds on anything, but it's just fun to talk about that era. And
You're right though. No one's talking about them, and no one's talking about like the whole either ranking an album or deep cuts. But they, there are some really good deep cuts, and you pretty much hit on all of them. Big Bang Baby.
mhm.
Um, hold on. Oh, Adhesive and Daisy.
Oh yeah, yeah, Daisy.
Daisy. Yeah, that's
Oh
a
my
good
God.
one.
Yeah, it's good.
And then the Big Empty. Then you got Plush, and then I think the Big Empty is the one that really put them on the map when they did the MTV Unplugged.
Mhm. I don't think I ever saw
And
that.
that was 1993. Now again, they released the second album. They did it live on this MTV thing, and they just came out with this other one, 1992. So that's 2 albums in like a year, and it was just nothing but sizzling hits.
I don't know. Of course, you remember, the music industry then, they wanted you to crank out records some degree. It's not like
Oh
the
right,
60s where they wanted you to put an album out every 2 months.
yeah.
But
That's
still in
what
the
that's where
early
they burned
90s,
out Bush. Yeah, they burned out Bush that way because they wanted one every 6 to 8 months. It's like you just you know Took me 20 years to write this first album. You think I'm just gonna come up with it? Like, hey, here's some riffs. Here's 12 of them.
You signed that contract.
Yeah. And then they want 3 every 2 years or something, even if
Mhm.
it's an EP or a live.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, kids, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if we're going to change anybody's mind, but it's just fun to talk about STP. And I think for anybody who was into that whole era back in that, I think it's well worth revisiting. Heck, a lot of those bands that no one talks about in the grunge era, again, I don't think STP's grunge. I don't hear that. They just seem like a regular rock band to me.
Mhm.
And that, maybe Nirvana, if you're going to look at grunge, you could call them grunge, I guess.
Right. It's the
But,
tone, it's like
it's a
it's the
tone.
Marshall
Mud
stacks, it's
Honey,
the Gibson
Mud
guitars,
Honey,
and
I guess.
yeah, yeah.
But I don't, STP, they're a little bit too clean,
Even to me, Cinderella is a blues band, but guess where they put them? Here you go, next to Motley Crue. Here you go, bro. Oh,
That's
Kingdom
really all
Come's
they
gonna love you. Why
were.
don't you guys, shake hands?
Hmm. It's
No,
the
they're
same
blues.
thing. They wanted to put Stone Temple Pilots in that grunge thing. They needed something that could compete with Pearl Jam. They needed their own Pearl Jam. So that's what they
Yeah.
made them
But they
into.
got Alice in Chains to really compete with it and get like an over the top chorus, really.
Hmm.
Riffs. You just need riffs.
Alice in
Can you
Chains,
dig
though,
it?
wasn't that far off from all that hair metal stuff to some degree.
Yeah.
They were in that group, but they always seemed like they were like on the outside fringe.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Right.
And I
Bark
don't know
Market
if you,
was another one. Bark Market was well produced, and that's a 3-piece. But
I
they were
don't know
kind of
them.
good drums. They're from New York.
Hmm.
They were good, but you know what? They had like 3 albums and disappeared, and I think they got played twice on MTV, if that.
And that
And
was
then there
it.
was Sponge. Sponge was
I
another one.
remember Sponge.
Yeah, that they used to be Loud House, and then they were keeping up with the Stone Temple Pilots. They were keeping up with that because that was always on the radio. I'm I'm not sure Tool was even out yet. I think they came out in '91
They
or
came
even
out on Zoo
'93.
Entertainment. I can't remember who
I think
signed.
they're all related. I think it's all the same label.
It's
I could be wrong.
BMG owned Zoo.
Yeah.
But I had that Scott Byron interview, and Scott mentioned Tool, and they
Yeah.
knew when they first heard Tool that they had something more
Oh
than
yeah.
any of these bands. They knew that that was gold.
What was great is they were bringing prog back, and people didn't even know it. They were calling them like math rock, and they were calling them
Mhm.
like heavy metal, tribal, whatever, legacy. They were
Mhm.
calling them epic. They were calling them all these names, but what they were was prog. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And
Right.
people now they get it. Took them, long enough to put out what 5 albums, 7 albums.
Right. I can't remember who signed him. I don't think
That's
Scott
somebody that could
Byron
milk
signed him.
one album. That's somebody that could milk one album for 3 hours. And that's kind of smart the way that they do it.
Hmm. But that pretty much supported Zoo Entertainment, I think. Well, Matthew Sweet was on Zoo, but
Yeah. I'm trying to think what you
Tool
two.
was the big band, and Flowerhead was on Zoo.
Yeah, Flowerhead. They were big. They were like an overnight sensation. They were a one-hit wonder, and then they disappeared after one summer. They used to play them on WBRU out here on 95.5. You'd hear that for a whole summer. It was good.
Hmm.
That whole album's good.
Well, they put out 2 records.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good band. Another one was Del Fuegos.
Yeah, I
Another
remember
one.
Del Fuegos.
They're from Boston. They're really good.
I used to, well, I don't know if I've seen it anymore. There was back in the day, you would always see those Del Fuego albums, CDs in the cutout and in the cheapy bins you used for like
Yeah,
$1.
yeah,
No
it's a
one knew
shame.
who they were in
I know.
Ohio.
It's funny. I'm the one that buys those. Jay Giles is the other one that I'm always grabbing. Oh, I don't have this live one. Oh, I don't have this one. You
Hmm.
know, the only thing I'm missing is freeze frame. That's the only one I'm missing.
There's all kinds of stuff in those used bins you can get.
If you can find them, and they're not a dollar bin
Well,
anymore. They're like $5 or $7
they
bins.
have like a $2 bin
They're
now.
beat up, and you look at them. They got surface scratches. They got
Hmm.
Scary. Taking chances at Sabres or Goodwill.
I never find anything at Goodwill.
I just got a 50th anniversary harvest from Neil Young. That's the first time I've ever owned it. It's got that old school cardboard.
Mhm.
Yeah, the cover. It's nice and it's clean. Couldn't believe it. $2.
Sometimes you're lucky. You just
Yeah.
never know. But Brian, in order to find anything, you have to go constantly. You have to constantly go out.
Yeah. I used to do that.
And then, you
I don't
may
do it
find
anymore.
something. You
It's
may
coming
not.
down to
Most
the
of the time,
point.
you don't find anything.
Yeah, it's coming down to the point where the stuff I'm looking for is to fill gaps from like the 60s through like the 80s. If you sit back, you'll find them. They come to you.
Mhm.
But anytime that I'm into something that's pre-release, new release, something that's within the past 3 years, those are the ones I'm paying something, plus shipping. So $45 to $50 a record.
Mhm.
So that adds up.
Yeah, it does.
If I sold all my records and got CDs instead, I still think the floor would fall through onto my neighbors downstairs because of the
There's
weight.
nothing wrong with CDs, though.
I just have twice as much.
Well, it's a hell of a lot cheaper to buy a CD than it is a record. I'll give it that.
But records hold value. They do.
Yeah, but
Over 25 years or over 30.
well, what goes around comes around. Mark my words. This next generation will go, oh my God, look at these discs, these shiny discs
They're
and
starting to
full
collect records
information.
now because they're
Huh?
getting hand-me-downs from grandpa. The younger generation is collecting records now because they think it's trendy.
Mm-hmm.
They think everything's worth $1 million, but they're getting hand-me-downs from, grandpa, their fathers, their parents. And
Well, CDs will come back around. Mark my words.
well, there's a big market for that, but you know what people want to pay for? A
Mm.
dollar for a CD because they're already paying $6 to $7 for a media package to have them shipped. So it's an $8 CD for, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to pay $8 plus $8, $16. I could just go to the store and go get that for,
Well, it depends on what it is. That's the thing.
market's always changing, but yeah,
Market's always changing. Yeah. You never know what I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even know what downloads are doing anymore because I think people are getting away from that because they're all looking for physical media.
I don't think it's slowing down. I
But
don't stream or anything, so
right, but even Bandcamp and stuff, it's like $2.99 a song sometimes. And you get a whole CD times 10 songs. That's like $30 as opposed to getting the CD for $9.99 if you order it through the website.
doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah, capitalism with consumerism. It all depends on your taste. I've seen people spend $110 on this new Metallica record getting delivered to getting shipped to Australia. I couldn't even believe it. $110 for a record.
Well, you
And
don't.
if you bought the CD, it was going to be $89 just because of the shipping. Stupid.
Man, you don't ship anything to Australia.
That's a good way to lose sales. And it's not just times one, it's times probably a couple of million.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah. I like
all
to play
right,
the
well,
market. You can delete all this shit out. It's rambling.
Well, no, there's a show. I just need to edit. It's all right. It's no big deal. We're just shooting the shit. But I need to figure out how I'm going to end it, though.
Yeah. Well, you got your little doodads, right? Your graphics.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what to do.
Do a sayonara thing.
We'll just do a sayonara. All
hit
right.
the likes. Hit the subscribe.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Well, there you go. I want to thank Brian. All right. 3, 2, 1. I want to thank Brian Mcfaddden for coming on tonight. We just, we really started out this conversation. I was hoping we would pretty much just stick to the STP, but we have covered so much more. And that's what this channel is about, is music discussion. However it goes, we've talked Pearl Jam, we've talked Mudhoney, we've talked we've talked Soundgarden. This is
Jam.
much more than just an STP episode. But one thing Brian and I can probably agree on is that probably if you're looking at stuff and you're familiar with STP or any of these other bands, it's probably time has passed, man, and no one's talking about these bands anymore. You may want to just look at them and maybe pick something up and reintroduce yourself to them, because I'm telling you, the STP, the Stone Temple Stump, 3, 2, 1. The Stone Temple Pilot stuff has aged really well. And a lot of that stuff in the 90s. Think about it. Soundgarden. That stuff is aged well. It hasn't dated itself. You know? I don't know. Just throwing it out there, kids. But anyway, I want to thank Brian Mcfaddden for coming on and shooting the shit with me, because it
Thanks
was
again.
fun.
I appreciate it. Very
And
humble.
well, it was fun. It's good to have new blood, and I always appreciate you always chiming in and following the channel. And it's fun to get out there and talk to everybody, and we can plan on doing something else.
Yeah,
you
that'd
know?
be great. I appreciate it. Look forward
Sure.
to it.
You know what would be good is Hum would be a good band to talk about.
Yeah, and the drummer just passed on the last album.
See,
So
there's
it's-
always ideas coming to me, but Hum, those records are killer. No
Oh,
one's
yeah.
talking Hum.
Especially the debut with the pod.
Yeah.
That thing changed my mind about concept and what could actually be done in reality as far as writing. That changed my mind big time. Dig is
Maybe
another one.
Yeah.
God
Maybe
Machine's another one.
there's a lot of great stuff that no one's covering, you know?
Yeah. Pop will eat itself. No one's talking about them.
No. Well, we're never going to run out of topics on this channel. It's just going to keep going, Brian.
I know.
All
I
right,
know.
man. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. It was fun talking with you, and I'm thinking we'll plan on doing a Hum episode.
I enjoyed it, Grant. Thank you.
All
so
right,
much.
man.